Well, as we promised, folks, Senator John McCain is going to join us on the lines today, the long-distance line, the real long-distance lines, because he's over in the Mideast. I call it the Grand Slam, Afghanistan and Iraq and Israel. And, John, you're in Israel today, right?
Yes, I am, Barry. I'm in Jerusalem, and we've had a very interesting visit here. I had an interesting visit in Iraq and especially Afghanistan, and I was able to spend 4th of July with the troops in a re-enlistment and award ceremony with General Petraeus, and it's a very humbling and incredible experience to spend this time with those brave young men and women who are serving. Went down to Kandahar, and there's 130 to 120 degrees, and they're out there chasing after the bad guys and doing a great job. And I know we've got a lot to talk about, but I'd like to mention first, I believe we've got the strategy that can win in Afghanistan, but there's two big problems. One is corruption in the Karzai government, and the other is the president saying that we're going to get out by the middle of next year, and that sends the wrong signal.
How will General Petraeus? Because everybody's saying that we need to make some changes to the rules of engagement over there, and how in the world? How do you do such a thing and carry on such a conflict with the commander-in-chief back here putting out these arbitrary dates that we're going to leave?
Well, an arbitrary dates thing, frankly, I don't know the answer to it. It's just, but General Petraeus is walking a fine line because, he does work for the commander-in-chief, but he keeps saying that it should be conditions-based. And that's why we left Iraq when we did, once the conditions were right and we had won. But the president has got to say it. The president of the United States is through the Pakistanis, the Taliban, and others say that. We met a police chief who was, by the way, one of that's not corrupt outside Kandahar, and he said, the Taliban are telling our people that the Americans are leaving, and if you cooperate with them after they leave, we'll cut off your heads. So I have no doubt that setting a date certain, when you tell the enemy you're leaving, they just wait until you leave. On the rules of engagement, real quick, Barry, Petraeus is tweaking those. He stated that they had been interpreted at some levels, like at the company and platoon level, too rigorously, and he was going to tweak those policies to make sure that the first priority, first, last, and always, is the lives and well-being of the men and women who are out there on the line, putting it on the line in combat. So I think he's going to fix the problem.
Now, before we get over to the lawsuit here in Arizona, I want to ask you one other thing about Israel. You're in Jerusalem right now. How are the citizens of Israel, and how are you viewing this warm meeting that the president had yesterday with the Prime Minister Netanyahu? Last time they got together, it was so contentious that the White House said, "No, we're not even going to allow cameras in this meeting." And who the heck knows what the Barack Obama administration policy to Israel is going to be in the long run? Yesterday, it was all kiss, kiss, hug, hug. Are the Israelis buying the change of heart that seems to have?
The Israelis are very cautious. As you know, it's been over a year since the very strange behavior towards Israel, at least in the view of many of us, a demand that there be a freeze on settlements, which then they dropped the demand, and the Palestinians, of course, then demanded it. As you said, it was a bizarre situation. The president was meeting with Netanyahu in the White House, went upstairs to have dinner with his wife and children, keeping Netanyahu downstairs until after he finished dinner. Now, yesterday, it was entirely different. I think the Israelis are skeptical. They would like to see better relations and more cooperation. All of us would. We'll see how they behave. As you noticed, there was a lot of nice things said by the president yesterday, but there was no specifics, as you may have noticed. We'll see.
What do you think? Is it a sure thing that Israel is going to take out Iran's nuclear capability, or do you think that's still in the air?
I can't speak for the Israelis, but from meeting with the defense minister today, Ehud Barak, and the head of their military, they are very aware of the threat that this poses. They are very aware that the militarization, the nuclearization of the region would happen immediately when Iran acquires these nuclear weapons. So it is my view that we and the Israelis cannot allow the Iranians to acquire nuclear weapons. Now, we just imposed some tough sanctions. Let's hope that they work. I don't think that they're going to be that effective. I hope that they will. We've got time to make decisions, but you and I have talked about this before. Nuclear Iran then means Saudi Arabia, Jordan, other countries in the region will all acquire nuclear weapons, and this part of the world, that happening can have catastrophic consequences in the short and the long run.
All right.
You know.
I'm gonna bring you back home from Israel for a moment. While you were doing the Lord's work over there in the Mideast, congratulations, you're now a defendant like the rest of us. We all got served yesterday. And they're claiming that, the supremacy clause, the commerce clause of the Constitution, and a couple of other things. And this is what they're basing their case on. So what's your comment?
My comment is it's one of the more bizarre moves I've ever seen any government make, because the simple fact is that if the federal government had fulfilled its responsibilities, which they are now saying is being challenged, if they had fulfilled their responsibilities and secured the border, then the Arizona legislature and governor would not have had to act. So why not secure the border and drop the case, and then you don't have a problem, because then the state of Arizona doesn't have to play a role in it when the federal government fulfills its responsibilities. It is bizarre, in my view, and frankly infuriating. And also, I might add, remember the president said that, well, the Arizona law, you can't take your child out for an ice cream cone or something like that. Well, obviously they couldn't find anything wrong with the law in that aspect, did they? Otherwise, they would have sued on the grounds that it leads to racial profiling and discrimination.
Exactly.
They couldn't make that case.
No,
So
there's no mention of racial profiling in this lawsuit.
Because they couldn't find it, because the Arizona law specifically prohibits it. They know it would go out of court in a New York minute. So, look, it's just, it's both infuriating and frustrating, and as you know very well, Barry, the escalation, the violence continues to escalate south of our border. It is dramatically different over the last few years, as you know. 21 people killed 12 miles south of Nogales, Arizona. Little kids being brought in, as drug mules, little tiny kids. Let's invite the president to come to the border and have a look. Preferably during the month of August, it might be nice, July or August. Come to the border, look what our brave people in the Border Patrol and our sheriffs and all those people are doing, and see that the border is not secure, and then maybe he might change his mind. Don't you think it'd be a good idea for him to at least see what he's talking about so much?
Well, he announced, the White House announced in the last 24 hours, they said, we got out of the way. We got nothing to do with this lawsuit. The president handed down the authority to file and not file to Eric Holder, and they said, well, we're just out of the line of fire here. We have nothing to say about it.
Well, of course, that's ridiculous. Of course, that's an insult to our intelligence. But look, you know what I'm happy about? The majority of the American people support what we've done in Arizona. The majority of the American people want our border secured. Other states are considering the same legislation. And again, for all of those people out there, you have anyone who has been oblivious of the dramatic rise in violence and the drug cartels and the human trafficking, which has affected our borders, has not been paying attention to the fact that 23,000 Mexican citizens have been killed south of our border and murdered in these drug cartel wars with the government and with each other. And guess where the most violent drug cartel exists? The Sinaloa cartel, headed by Chapo Guzman, south of our border, Arizona's border. It's just, anyway.
Well,
I know you...
I don't know if are we still connected? Are you getting the signal? Okay, all right.
Could I just mention again, Barry? John and Kyle and I have a 10-point plan. We can get the border secure. It's the improvement on the Yuma sector has been dramatically increased. We can do the same thing in the Tucson sector, and I'm in the state of Israel. And guess what they did? They secured their border.
Yes, they have. How is the wall, the fence working still? Do you believe that it is a success? It's a success.
Have a combination. It's working fine, but they have a combination of sufficient number of personnel, the well-built fence, and the surveillance capability. They surveil these fences. As you know, without surveillance and personnel, people knock down fences and they dig tunnels around them or climb over them. So they've got a good combination of the three. That's what we need on our border.
All right, good to talk to you as always. Come into the studio when you get back in town during the August recess. We'll be looking forward to seeing you in person.
I'll look forward to it. My best to Michelle.
All right. Thank you, sir. Senator John McCain. He's in Jerusalem.